Welcome to Champions Network TV, where we give you the topical issues of the day. And today we have got an important topic to discuss: the implication of the young demographics of Africa, and focusing on education and job creation. And to give us the starting point and the guidelines, we have got Shumba in the house, who is the passionate about geopolitics and also the institutions, which is also education is part of institutions. So is the right mind to shape our discussion today. So over to you, Shumba.
Good evening, viewers, wherever you are in the world. Would want to welcome you to this interesting discussion where we look at the demographics of Africa. So to start with, I think when we talk of the demographics dividend that Africa can take advantage of, Africa is the youngest of all continents in the world, with an average age of 19. This presents challenges as well as opportunities. So today we're going to look at those challenges. What we're going to look at, because we're going to do this in episodes, we're going to look at how Africa can take advantage of that demographic dividend. And if it doesn't take advantage of that demographic dividend, what are the implications, or what are the probably negative connotations of us not having taken advantage of that demographic dividend? So we're going to look at things like that Africa needs rapid job creation, and then it needs education. And with education, we are talking also of improved skills. So that might mean creating more technical schools, technical colleges, apprentices, and things like that, just to make sure the whole nation is geared towards a developmental goal. And we should, in fact, have most governments should have an industrial strategy of absorbing that demographics, so that these young people can get into work. And then we're also gonna look, because of that, we also need a lot of infrastructure, that is power, transport, and digital infrastructure, so that we can provide for these young minds to innovate. And then the last thing, like Mijev just said, I'm someone so obsessed with the institutions. In order to deliver all the things that I'm talking about, we need stable institutions. So we're gonna have to start building institutions. When we are building institutions, we need things that are accountable, things that are transparent, things that drive a national vision. So those are the challenges ahead of us. So I'll put it back to the floor with the mind that we're going to discuss more about job creation and education in this episode. So we're going to touch on how we can gear Africa to take advantage of the demographic dividend and create jobs for the African youth, and also empower them with skills and education, so that we can have an innovative Africa. So I throw this back to the floor.
Thank you so much, Shumba. It's quite a mouthful. A lot of focus What does it mean? What is the appropriate education to Africa and the institutions? What are institutions that work? So let's put our minds to this. In the first place, is the education we are here serving the purpose for Africa. If not, what do we need to do? But obviously, as you mentioned, it is the education that is going to inform or to create a skills that will be that will be utilized for us as Africa to lead ahead. But as you said, we have got a young population. Critical. Ndinechane chizvinzo here kana kuti tingatsinza tese ungaiti takanenga feedback so
Yeah, even here I was hearing the same.
right, okay. So let's start talking.
Yeah, what I could say when we talk of education, you cannot just start by saying, let's send people to school aimlessly. Like I said, you need an industrial strategy. You need an economic strategy. You need a goal and a vision as a nation, where you are and where you want, what you want to attain, or where you want to go. So the education that you're going to provide is supposed to address the priorities that you have as a nation. So let's say at the moment, Zimbabwe is a mining country. We want to make sure we exploit our minerals. So one of the education, one of the pillars of that education, or one of the things that you should incorporate into that education is things like geology, mining engineering, and then the transformation of those minerals to ready-made products. So all those skills are needed for you for you as a nation to say this is the direction we're going to exploit our minerals. So you have to prepare the young minds that are coming through the education system for careers into those sectors. When you talk of agriculture, you've got an agricultural strategy as well as an industrial strategy. So you are combining the two. So you enhancing your agricultural education. You are also creating skills in agriculture like Wanam Domeni, which are agricultural extension officers, agronomists, and things like that. So you really seeing that your agriculture is covered. And then after that, now you bring in the industrial part of what we could say agrobusiness, whereby now you have produced your maize, you have produced your soya beans, you have produced your sunflower. Can we start making cooking oil or corn oil out of the corn that we have? Can we start making stock feeds? Can we start looking at other industries we can create out of those things that we have produced from agriculture? So it needs to be a multifaceted look at our education system so that we enhance those skills, that as soon as we produce things, we are also creating other verticals to say this is what we will need in future. These are the skills that we need in future. And we are galvanizing everything, but our education should be informed from the industrial strategy and agricultural strategy and the economic strategy that we would be having. And then that will be imparted on the education system, and we come up with a new curricula that has got a vision for the nation.
What about the education 5.0? How does it speak to these things?
I think the problem is sometimes they are just sound bites. Like I said, for me personally, I would go to where you want to go as a nation. That should be your compass. And then you now work backwards to your education curricula to say, these are the things that in 30, 50 years, this is where we want to be. And then in terms of industry, in terms of agriculture, in terms of your economy. So you work backwards now to say, this is where we want to go. How do we achieve that? And then you come back now to tailor your education system to match with that national vision that you would have outlined.
I think if Jenna was here, he would say our education system needs revamping. At the moment, we're creating educated people who are geared to look for a job. We need to take out that mindset and create educated people who are going to create jobs.
Exactly.
Okay, who are empowered enough to know that even if I start small, I'm going to create jobs in my community, be it 1 job, 2 jobs. Not everybody who finishes education, everybody who get a degree is looking for a job. Where? There's no jobs. So it's now our job to create those jobs. How can we do that? By changing our education. Create skills. Not just academic, which is amazing. It's all very amazing. But if we create skills, do you remember like Chibero College?
Mm-hmm.
Not just in one field. We need to create skills in all fields, animal husbandry, horticulture, all these things that we can do because we already got the resources. We already got the land to farm. We already got the animals. We already know. We now need to empower each other to say, okay, if you come together in your community, you can maybe start animal husbandry. These kids can be educated to learn to do it proper and then to learn the business side of it. Okay, if we do animal husbandry, what are we going to do with the animals? Are we going to do meat? Are we going to import cows? What are we going to do with the animals, right? Where can we sell our goats? Is it just meat? Is it just goats as they are? The business side of it. How do we do it? Everybody wants to wear shoes. Can we not build a factory to make shoes? Why do we have to go to China to import shoes? While we've got cows, we are killing cows every time. We've got the leather. Those skills, that's what we need to do. Because even this academic thing, not everybody is academic. Mm-hmm. And those who can use their hands, let's encourage these children in school to say, okay, you might not be amazing at maths, but you can fix a bicycle. Let's then give you the skill to be a mechanic. Apprenticeships. How can we create those so that the kids who don't want to go to university or cannot go to university can then go into apprentice and learn skill on the job? This is very successful. Apprenticeship is very successful. These kids learn on the job. They become mechanics. They become whatever. They are skilled from the ground. By the time they are 20, 25, they are amazing at the job. Farming, if you want to do farming, Go and learn that skill. We cannot all just sit there and find a job. That mindset need to go. We need to think, how can I create the job? I want to be an engineer. How can I create jobs in engineering? Where can I get them know-how? Where can I get the money? How can I do this? Who do I approach to say, okay, I want to be an engineer, but I want to create jobs in the field. Because there are no jobs. Instead of everybody, I mean, you find these whatever politicians saying, oh, if you vote for me, I will pay for you to go to work in another country. Why are you sending our skills outside, our resources outside, instead of using them for us? So we need that mindset to create jobs. And know that you don't really need a lot of education to do that. Because people who are growing vegetables, they create jobs for 2-3 people. We can grow from that. So it's mindset. When we are educating our children, let's educate children who are empowered to know that I don't want to find a job when I finish. I want to create jobs for my community.
Wow. It's quite interesting. And actually, you know, even in this country, they are actually emphasizing on apprenticeships. And I remember even in social services, they are more interested in getting those who are social care assessors to go on the apprentice program, because it mixes both your skills and the academic aspect of it, so that you, by the time you finish, you are already a polished person. So, Shumba, from your perspective, what stops us from rethinking and bringing educational institution that speaks to our needs? Is it because we inherited the system and it never bothered to change it, or it's just no what do we say, political will to?
No, we are just lazy. We've got lazy politicians. We've got you need for you to change, you don't need a lot of people. You need just a few visionary people, and those few visionary people coming together. That's why I said, if you craft an industrial strategy for the country, I think I've got 2 examples. If you mind to read or go and search about the 3 men who built South Africa, it doesn't even say the lot of men who built South Africa. It's the 3 men who built South Africa, and the 3 of them are Kruger, and then Oppenheimer, and then the other guy, he was an engineer. I'm sort of forgetting his name. I'll give you his name. This guy was a genius. The Kruger had a vision. Oppenheimer had money. And then the engineer was this guy, originally from Germany. And then he left Germany, went to South Africa, and he met Kruger. Kruger saw the brilliance of this guy. And at one time, this guy eventually left South Africa, went to America. Kruger went to America and brought this guy back to South Africa. Some of the big state enterprises, or what do we call them? Those state enterprises.
Parastatals
You see in South Africa. He was the brains behind those. So if you talk of Transnet, he's the guy who actually made Transnet possible with his vision. So that's South Africa. So you don't need a lot of men. You need just a few with a vision. And the impact they're going to have on the society is going to be immense. So when you look at the other example that I was going to give is South Korea. I always give this example. South Korea, after the Second World War, it was devastated by war. Actually, they say North Korea was more developed than South Korea because the Japanese actually developed the North more than the South. And then you had a president when he came into power. This is where I want to marry it with what Soko was saying, where she was asking, how do we fund these things? Because the president had a vision. He called it the 5-year economic vision. He brought in, if you go into economics, you learn something called chaebols. The spelling is CHAEBOLS. These are some of the biggest companies in South Korea that dominate the economy of South Korea. How did they come about? They came about because the president had a vision of transforming the economics of the economic trajectory of South Korea. So what did he do? He brought these families. They had already businesses, but he brought them along and he said, I want you to transform your businesses so that they can be industrial giants that can power the South Korean economy. So he gave them money, tax breaks, all the things, the things they needed for them to build. So one of the companies now, we just use their gadgets, but we don't know. It's Samsung. It has become one of the biggest employers in South Korea today. So it's also about a vision. Obviously, like today, our focus is not on industrialization, industrial strategy, but it all comes back to what we were saying, that our education system, it should be driven by a vision. First, you have the vision and say, how are we going to accomplish this vision? And then now you move back, you draft your curriculum for your education. So this is where you are saying we don't need too much academics in our curriculum. We need more apprenticeship. Most of these kids in primary school, they should be going for apprenticeships. Learn how to make shoes, learn how to solve the problems that Zimbabwe have or Africa has. So you starting with apprenticeship, technical college, and then academics, where it comes in. Those who are exceptionally good in academics now becomes your researchers. They are the people who go on to do PhDs and come up with new ways of doing things. They are the ones who are going to feed to the technical colleges, to the universities, and say, within our industrial strategy, we want to do this. China has been doing this to make lithium batteries. But us, from the research we have done, let's do it this way. You don't necessarily have to copy what China is doing. You have to find new ways of doing your own thing or using local materials that China doesn't know of. So that's the kind of innovation we are looking for. And that will address most of our challenges with unemployment and sort of rebuilding our economies for the next generations.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting topic, especially starting with the education, starting at the industrial vision or industrial strategy, and that then feed into the education that will produce the skills that we need. And then those who are exception, like Shumba, will be the researchers who come up with the innovation to feed back into the curriculum to answer the industrial strategy that we have come up with. Any thoughts, Soko?
Vakuru vanoti kugara nhaka kuona dzevamwe tinotarisawo zvakaitwa kune dzimwe nyika izvozvo, and then we tailor it to suit situation yedu, and it kuti ivo vakazviita so they did this, but this suited their country. Let's say they do fishing, we do mining, then we tailor it for us, but we can look at their plan and how they did it. These 5-year plans, these 10-year plans, this, you see countries like Singapore, they did it quietly while the world is moving. They are doing their thing quietly. By the time people realize it's a power, that's what we need to do. Stop the talking and then do quietly. Look at these plans, what other countries have done, even China. Once upon a time, they were not as big as they are.
They were
but quietly, these plans are put into place, and people go quiet while they're working. By the time the world looks,
they were ignored. They were ignored by the world, thinking, "Oh, China, where is it gonna go?" After Second World War, nobody really bothered about China because they thought, "Oh, they're gonna fight, they're gonna have internal conflicts." But they put their shit together, so to say, and then look at them now. And like Soko said, kugara naka kuona dziwamwe. If you go back, you actually find China learned from Singapore. That's where they learned this. So I think we really also need to learn. I used to work in the government myself, and I always say, the time I was in the government, we were training some African countries, were seeing the goodness of Zimbabwe. And we had people from Burundi, we had people from Uganda, civil servants, from Rwanda. Most East Africa, Tanzania, they were coming to Harare for training because they understood we want also to be like Zimbabwe. That time, Zimbabwe was seen as a mini Europe. Yeah. So they say, we want to be Zimbabwe. Now we talk of Rwanda. We were miles, years ahead of Rwanda. But they mastered all this from us, as we are now the laughing stock, you see. So the other thing, when we talk of education, I think there need to be a revamp in terms of the attitude of the government towards education. In this, I mean like things like scholarships. This is what we see the Chinese did, the most other countries we have actually developed economically have done. They send their kids overseas, well-funded scholarships for the critical skills that you need. And those people, when they come back, the state has got to provide jobs. And when you provide those jobs, then those skills are put into use. And the other thing I was going to talk about is I've always advocated that we need, like in America they called it after the Great Depression. There was what the President Roosevelt called the jobs deal, where the state guaranteed jobs for people. It's not always left to the markets to guarantee jobs. Most of the jobs you see in China is state-owned enterprises. So what we need in Zimbabwe with our economy is a works deal, which is provided for the government. So the works deal, the way it works is the government put people to build the infrastructure of Zimbabwe. That is your roads, that is the critical infrastructure, your energy projects. You are employing your own people in masses. If it means guaranteeing a minimum wage, doing so, as long as your people are employed and gaining skills, then we are going somewhere. But before you do all that, you need to sit down and have an industrial vision, an industrial strategy, an economic strategy and vision, as well as a whole vision for the country where you want to be in the next 30 or 50 years.
Isn't it galvanized in the mantra nyika inovakwa nevenhu?
Yeah, it can be. That's a nice sound bite. But what we need is the pragmatic part of it. Are you actually doing that? That shows nyika inovakwa nevenhu vayo. The pudding is in the eating. So what you need is actually, where is the industrial strategy? Where is, in saying Zimbabwe inovakwa nevenhu vayo, what's the vision? Where do we want to be in the next 30 or 50 years? Has that been defined apart from nyika inovakwa nevenhu vayo? What's the destination? That's what we're talking about.
Vision 2030.
Okay.
Right. I think we have overshot our time, and as we said, this is going to be a series, and it is it's not going just to be just a 2-part series, but we'll touch different aspects on different days. Today we were looking at education and job creation. So Ko Shumba, any final thoughts? Because you never know, there might be an educational minister who watches this one day, or there might be a kid, 5-year child who might watch it, or a university student that may watch it. What message can you give them?
I'm hoping structures come in that help, because zvinobvira kumusoro vakaita mastructures anotibatsira. If the institutions are there, I think it will help, because if you look even justice, mapurisa, and if there's a strong anti-corruption, the institutions work well, even crime goes down. If we stop all this with education, we need to do Cambridge, why don't we have our own institutions? Why do we have to have Cambridge and all this? Are we not strong enough? Are we not clever enough to do this thing, or to do our own institutions? I mean, colonization ended a long time ago. Why are we still reliant on Cambridge paper, this? I mean, I'm just saying, if we change the mindsets and stop, like Shumba says, stop being lazy and waiting for others to come and do it, I think we've got such strong African people, resources, education, educated, clever people who can actually change things.
Okay, Shumba.
Yeah, like I said, we always outsource our thinking, and so in this day and age we still have Cambridge. Why are we so? Do we like Cambridge? That's a question we must ask. The reason why we like Cambridge is Cambridge as an institution, what it provides for transparency and the credibility to its qualifications. So what stops us building a similar institution with the credibility, transparency, and robust sort of a robust institution that will make it a darling maybe of Africa to say, oh, ZIMSEC, we want all kids in Africa, even in South Africa, will say, oh, I think we should write ZIMSEC. Things that are exported to us are basically things that have been built by institutions, and those institutions remain robust. So we need to also think those things through. That's why you understand why Chain came about, because you were laughing that Peterhouse is better than Chain Chimtengwende, but it's all about mindset. Chain Chimtengwende can be better than Peterhouse. It depends what you do and what your vision is. If you put that vision to paper and build robust institutions, the name will sell itself. So that will be my conclusion.
Thank you so much. What an interesting discussion and thought-provoking direction. And I think the bottom line is Africa has got potential. We've got the young population. We have got. I was looking at one of the posts that was put on the group, which says Africa when they talk about the fertility, it is the only continent that has got the highest number of fertility. In other words, where a woman can give birth to more than 4 kids, whilst other countries are now having less than 1. And so, and if we don't capture this potential, it can actually become a problem. Like we are beginning to see the cracks through Nanamtoriro, and which is we have failed when the industrial strategies, Shumba said, when we have failed on the job deal, to say we are not guaranteeing our kids a future in terms of working. When it comes to the final thoughts, I think Soko has nailed it down. They said we need the structures, we need to fix our institutions. She gave an example of the justice system where it's rampant with corruption. And she mentioned, why do we still need external examination board like Cambridge, which was seconded by Shumba, to say it speaks volumes in terms of the robustness of our institution. And why don't we have a ZIMSEC that is recognized internationally, so that we can have all people coming all over the. It becomes actually revenue source if other countries are coming to do our educational system. And of course, we, as Champions Network TV, we have got our baby in the house, the Chain Academy, which is going to be a reality soon. And we will pride ourselves as being the brains behind that, and we will support it. And for now, until we will meet on Sungai Mbavu tomorrow, and we will decide on which day we are going to do the episode 2 of the implication of the African young demographic dividends. Hopefully, at that point, we will be looking at either industrial strategy or educational curriculum, whichever. I don't know which one Shumba will guide us through to see which one do we start with. But we need to cascade it until we get to the skills that are really an answer to our situation in Africa. So this is all for now from Champion Network TV. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe and tick the notification bell so that you don't be left behind when we go live.